This One's Wife. Brand Bust, I called it. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Way back in September 2021, not long after the ridiculous Time magazine cover photo of This One's Wife and her hairdresser Harry, I explained that the Sussexes were now embarking on a downward spiral. Their unpopularity was starting to increase. There was blowback from the earlier Oprah Winfrey interview that there were more and more people that were starting to see through what she was, not necessarily accepting that she's a narcissist, but seeing more and more of her behaviours whereby they realised, actually, there's something not really right about her. Of course, people had spotted these things at a much earlier juncture, but what I was talking about was that they had now created a groundswell whereby momentum was being obtained, so that there was a tipping point. Hitherto, there were still plenty of people that liked them. There were still plenty of people that would give them the benefit of the doubt amidst those individuals who were cynical about their motives and behaviours. But it was around this point, following the Time magazine cover ridiculousness, that I saw that more and more people were realising, yeah, she's trouble. And also, more of the behaviours were starting to stack up to give credence to the criticisms that came her way. Thereafter, I provided you with numerous instances of how the downward spiral was occurring. The analogy was that it wasn't a rapid descent, but rather imagine a very large whirlpool, and she was circling around the edges, slowly but surely descending towards the plug hole of obscurity in the centre. It would take a while for her to get there, but it's much, much closer now. And Forbes, for example, a serious publication, has recognised this also, stating, Harry and This One's Wife brand bust, from hyped up to biggest losers of 2023. The fact is that they are speeding up as they circle that plug hole, that the downward spiral has started to become steeper in their descent as a consequence of the collateral consequences of her narcissism, that she can't help but keep putting herself out there, but then keeps committing gaffes, and more people just look at it and go, yep, she's up to her old tricks, not buying it, she's tedious, she's nasty, she's smearing. Yes, we've heard it all before. Yes, the victimhood. Yes, the pity plays. Yes, the smearing. Don't accept it. Go away, please. The offers have dried up. The endorsements aren't there. The A-listers are staying away from them. The brands don't want to know. The cosmetic giants aren't returning calls, so on and so forth. Forbes writes, it's officially game over for the Harry and This One's Wife brand, as they are labelled the biggest losers in Hollywood by The Hollywood Reporter. Despite the relentless media coverage and hype generated by Prince Harry and This One's Wife through their projects, including Prince Harry's book Spare, the Netflix documentary, This One's Wife's RC Wipes podcast, and Harry's USA TV appearances, their efforts failed to translate into buyers for their core business. The Archwell Foundation saw a staggering $11 million drop in donations in the past year, sending it into the red. I believe this serves as a compelling case study for Harvard Business School on the ultimate brand buzz failure. Am I surprised? Not at all. In fact, back in January of this year, I warned that Harry's brand was in crisis and imploding. This was during a time when Harry and This One's Wife were riding high on their media hype strategy. So the Hollywood Reporter labelling Harry and This One's Wife the biggest losers in Hollywood only amplifies that original insight. But as Bram Stoker wisely said in Dracula, we learn from failure, not from success. So how can we avoid Harry and This One's Wife's all buzz and no bias strategy when building a brand? Firstly, it's important to be damn mindful of public perception. Harry and this one's wife faced ongoing criticism for their whiny and self-centered approach in their various projects. When building brands, leaders must be acutely aware of how our actions and messaging are perceived by the public. Were Harry and this one's wife wronged by the royal family? I believe they were. Did people want to see them cash in on that? I'm not so sure, and hence the backlash started. So even this writer is being sympathetic to them to believe that they've been wronged by the royal family. Not necessarily everybody would agree with that, but what this writer does see is that they shouldn't have cashed in on it. 64% of people have avoided a brand due to a bad experience, and 47% have shunned brands because of negative online reviews. Secondly, it's crucial to deliver on your brand promise. No amount of media buzz can save a substandard product or service. Do you hear that, this one's wife? You're substandard. I remember the sheer number of headlines generated by this one's wife's $20 million podcast deal with Spotify. But did it translate into listeners? No. In fact, Spotify dropped the podcast called Archetypes after just one season and pulled the plug on the couple's multi-million-dollar deal. Brands must ensure they deliver on their promises to build trust and credibility with audiences, especially among younger generations with highly tuned authenticity detectors. Oh, there's such a delicious irony about all of this, isn't there? That the woman that regularly talks about being authentic is probably the most inauthentic individual on the planet. I recognize as a consequence of my cognitive function that when you say you're going to do something, then you ought to deliver on it, as is an excellent way of maintaining control over people. That's why I have a prodigious output of my material for you to all learn from, to maintain a presence, to ensure that my work is foremost in your minds. This one's wife just expects to get paid for doing the square root of fuck all. 71% of people have little faith in brands delivering on their promises, and only 34% of consumers believe that companies are transparent about their commitments. Thirdly, choosing the right partnerships is crucial. 60 to 65% of strategic partnerships fail due to unrealistic expectations, failure to agree on objectives, and lack of trust or communication. The partnership with Spotify did more harm than good to Harry and this one's wife's brand, especially after Bill Simmons, the head of podcast innovation and monetization at Spotify, slammed the pair as grifters. More than half of strategic partnerships fail, so it's important to carefully consider partnerships that align with the brand's values and long-term goals. Lastly, brands must be open to feedback and willing to adapt their strategies and messaging based on audience response. I was puzzled to see how Harry and this one's wife stuck to their takedown of the royal family strategy despite the increasing negative feedback from audiences and the media. Well, the reason they stuck to this strategy was twofold. One, as a narcissist, she can't help but do it because she's the victim. And secondly, they stuck to it because they've got nothing else to offer, because the pair of them have no talent or ability. Audiences around the world expressed clear discomfort at a member of the royal family attempting to cash in on his family at their expense to build his own brand. Yet Harry and this one's wife failed to show the flexibility to maneuver their brand. Brands that prioritise customer experience and seek out and apply customer feedback are more likely to drive revenue and gain favourability among consumers. And brands with a customer experience mindset drive revenue 4 to 8% higher than their competitors. And 77% of consumers view brands more favourably if they seek out and apply customer feedback. Archwell's financial losses could have been avoided with the right brand strategy and positioning of Harry and this one's wife after their departure from the United Kingdom to the USA. Unfortunately, of course, we know that that wouldn't be achieved because this one's wife won't listen. She thinks she knows it all. Many CEOs would agree that a strong brand strategy is fundamental to the survival of a business. Brands that create buzz but fail to convert it into buyers are cautionary tales and will soon be a thing of the past. That's why 77% of chief marketing officers feel like they are being held accountable to their financial performance like never before. Back in January, Harry's brand was a branding crisis and actually imploding. Both Harry and this one's wife faced increasing levels of distrust as they dominated the media in unprecedented ways. Harry and this one's wife failed, where the Kardashians succeeded in monetizing their families' fortunes and misfortunes. The key difference? The immense authenticity that the Kardashians have built with their fan base over that time. Trust is a make-or-break factor, with 81% of consumers requiring it before buying into your brand. The Kardashians have earned that trust, which is why they're sitting on a multi-billion-dollar fortune. Harry and this one's wife, they sit in the red because they're not trusted. An interesting and excellent article about how their brand has now become bust. There's no coming back from this. They fail to gain the trust that they require. Of course, this one's wife will not accept this. Whilst it's patently clear to everybody else that their brand is fouquet'd and that nobody's that interested in them other than watching the inevitable car crash, she will insist and insist and insist on attempting to polish the turd, because her narcissism knows any other way. She cannot accept that she's fucked it up. Her narcissism will tell her that it's somebody else's fault. And the most likely outcome is to blame Harry, disengage from him, and find someone else. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.